Well, let's start then with the Welsh players at the World Cup. You had a handful of Welsh players at the World Cup in the end. Have you spoken to them? What's the timeline with them coming back to join up with you? And also, how proud are them of their performances at the World Cup?
Well, let's start with that question in parts. Yeah, so yes, I am obviously proud of them. Yeah, and they should be very proud of what they've produced individually. And obviously as a team, the team went well, which is good. It's really depending on the player themselves. So we set a timeline of a couple of weeks, definitely, and then the individual context is sort of put on top of that, you know. So if they've done a lot, played a lot, they've all been through the same experience, long training camps, etc. So there's a mental freshness as well as a physical freshness here. Some have already voiced an opinion about wanting to get back early, and some might need a little bit longer. So obviously no one's going to be around for this week, certainly unlikely to be the week after. And then we'll probably try and drip feed people in as and when. We've got a bars fixture to deal with as well, thrown into the mix. So from that point of view, it's fairly fluid, as you can imagine.
Because you touched on the barbars then, I was going to ask you as well, what are your thoughts on that fixture being played, finishing an hour before one of the Welsh derbies? I know it doesn't affect your club, but generally, what's your opinion on that?
Well, it does affect our club, doesn't it? Because basically people from our club can't play the day before in the Sharks game in London, which is meant to be a good big game for us, because apart from being a URC game, which is big enough, but also the fact that we've taken a game to London to try and do different things. So we'd like to have our best players available for us. So I don't think. So I understand the question around the Welsh derbies, but I think it's, the nature of the fixture for whoever. So I think that's difficult for everyone to manage, but it is what it is. So we'll have to get on with it. But obviously it's not ideal.
Let's go back to the Welsh players then. Jack Morgan and Dewi Lake, both of your players, co-captains at the World Cup. How good is that in Ospreys, from an Ospreys point of view, and also for developing talent for the future and possibly future Welsh captains going ahead from now as well? Yeah,
it's great, isn't it? Because, we've, as a region, historically brought quite a lot of leadership into the Welsh team. You think about Alan Wynne-Jones, Justin Tipuric, for example. They've certainly been in positions of leadership, and to get a couple more through the door and being trusted with that sort of levels of responsibility is great. And it can only bode well for us, because I've caught up with Dewi Lake, for example, this morning. He is really enjoyed the responsibility, enjoyed the whole leadership aspect, and says it's something that he wants to do more of and bring back to us. So yeah, there's added value for us, and those sort of things are gold, because they're more of the intangible. So no coach is ever going to say they want less leadership on the pitch or around their group. So to have people in, given responsibility is a reflection of them as people and players, but also it benefits the greater group, especially a younger group that's ever evolving, as ours is, because of where we are, So yeah, it's an exciting time, and as you say, the start of a new era.
Definitely. But how has it been for the pre-season at the Ospreys then? Because you've had a massive changeover of players leaving, retiring, obviously some of the World Cup. So how has that been? It's quite different squad, I would say, that you've had over the pre-season.
Yeah, 18 out, a few in is quite significant. Yeah, for sure. And obviously the World Cup on top of that. It's been challenging. It's been probably the most challenging pre-season I've been involved in 20 years, for sure, because of a lot of the uncontrollables and the logistics and where we find ourselves. And, we went on the road and found training opposition because we want to do 15 players versus 15 players in the right positions. And, needs must. So, we trained against Swansea Uni regularly. We trained against the Dragons. We trained against Cardiff. We went to Bath and trained, because we need to prepare a team ready for URC1. So from that point of view, you've got to find a way. And, it's broken what is a fairly long pre-season up, and given us good opportunity to learn about this new group and them to learn about themselves. And, we'll see how far we are down the track on Saturday.
What have you learned about them then, about the squad that you already had and the new players coming in? What's impressed you during pre-season?
They're tight. They're a tight group, and we've deliberately put some time into having some fun and spending time together and growing ourselves as a group off the pitch as well as on. So they're a tight group, and they work hard, and they also don't know what they don't know. So there's a responsibility on us as coaches and people around there to try and equip them with the skill sets and knowledge they require. So it's a bit of a reboot, but they've been like sponges, as the saying goes, and drawn a lot of that stuff in. And now the challenge for us all is how well they can apply it and how consistently they can apply it, and see where it takes us. But they've been a good group. They've been an absolute dream to work with, to be fair.
I bet you can't wait now after all that long pre-season for the first game to start on the weekend. But let's just talk about the change in the URC Champions Cup qualifications. And your Ospreys are one of the sides that got to the Champions Cup this season because you finished top in the Welsh Shield. That's not going to be the case this season round. What's your opinion on the fact that it's just going to be top 8 only?
Well, my opinion is, and I understand it both ways. I think everyone wants representation, but you have to earn the right. There's nothing given to you for free. Now, how you get to that representation is one thing, and as one door closes, another one opens. We know that Welsh rugby is where it is, and it'll be interesting to see how that transpires over this season and in the coming seasons. But it's not going to be easy for sure because of the depleting or diminished squad size and the competition itself, and it's going to be tough, but we're up for the challenge, so we'll see where it gets us.
And it's going to be tough away at Connacht on the weekend then. What are you expecting and how will you be prepared for this one?
Oh, we're focused on ourselves, as you can imagine, with the group that you've already mentioned. We're excited to see where it is and what it can do. We've continued to evolve the parts of the game that we've spent a lot of time in my time here developing around the attack side, and we know that Connacht's a very difficult place to go. It's difficult because for lots of reasons. Conditions wise, sometimes it's challenging there. The pitch it's an artificial pitch, brings different challenges to you. And also, we know that they're a very, very committed bunch. They always have done. They've got a style of play. They're very positive, and they'll want to impose themselves onto us, and as we do to them. So, yeah, I'm more focused on what we do and can we transfer the stuff we've been working on onto the pitch and see where that goes. And if we can do that, then I'm sure we'll give a good account of ourselves.
And finally, from me, how important do you think it is the first few weeks of the URC? If you think about the World Cup, it's still ongoing in France. You've got players that have left the World Cup from Ireland, from Wales, from Scotland that are still not back with their region. So how important are these first few games, do you think, if you take that into context?
Yeah, you can look at it in both ways. I mean, you look at the Scottish player, look at the English Premiership. There's Finn Russell sat on the bench for Bath, for example. McFarlane played for Surrey. So, it's not all one way or the other way. But for our competition, there's always a hangover in World Cup years, and that's why people have time off, right? Because mentally they're physically fit, or well, hopefully, but there's obviously people come back with knocks and niggles and injury. But take that aside, the real thing, they've got to unlearn a language, and there's a lot of transition time. But if you're implying or asking me around gaining momentum, obviously there is an opportunity, but we're depleted, they're depleted. So it really is a test often in the first few weeks about your strength in depth. And, our strength in depth comes from promoting our youth players or our younger players. And that brings the excitement, because the one thing they'll bring you is, a relentless energy and a desire to do well, because it's their first time, in that arena. And that brings an energy and an excitement for us all.
Thanks for your time. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Toby. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. You talk about promoting youth. What younger players that perhaps aren't household names yet have really impressed you in pre-season, and you think by the end of the season they'd be sort of more well known and they'd have made an impression?
Yeah, good question. So from our point of view, I think Morgan Morse has definitely carried on his under-20s form in relation to visibility. He's first time I've got to work with him in the pre-season. He was very good. He's been very good. The young props, Reece Henry, Ben Warren, excited about those two boys for sure. James Fender's come back from a loan spell in the English Championship and looks a different player through that year's worth of experience, which is great. I think that obviously there's still the names that you're more familiar with, that everyone talks about young players, and they are young, but they've been a mainstay for us. So your Morgan Morrises and your Will Griffs and people like that. So that's, you know, we started this core group, growing this core group, you know, since I started really. So we are lucky in the fact that we've put time and effort into that situation. Jack Walsh has been very, very good. Max Nagy's been very, very good. I know they've played a little bit more. So yeah, there's not too much to complain about in that respect. I think that it's more of, for those types of players that have had a taste of it, how hungry they are to kick on and keep improving. And the signs, as I say, have been very, very impressive so far.
Yeah, we've all seen how well Morgan Morse played for the 20s, and you literally ask anyone involved in the development pathways at the Ospreys or Wales to identify one player who's going to be a star, and they all say Morgan Morse. And is he that good? Are you that excited by him?
I'm excited by him. He's a very driven young man. He's got a lot of rough edges that will require some attention in the more subtle elements of the game. But from a physical capacity, from a intent, a competitiveness, it's sometimes rare, or say it is more rare that you see that at such a young age. So that's probably what makes him visible, because he won't take no for an answer, and he'll drive himself hard. And, you know, watching him, Harry Deeves and Justin Tipperick enjoy themselves in pre-season has been very energizing for us all. So yeah, he's definitely an exciting prospect for sure.
Will we see more of Dan Edwards this season as well?
He's been very good. He's been very good since he came back, and he's learning a lot from Owen, and you know, as a lot of the boys are. And I think that he played against Dragons in pre-season, didn't get it all his own way, and the good thing is that he's bounced back and it makes him more determined. So yeah, I've got a lot of high hopes for him too.
Yeah, obviously it's well documented the budgetary constraints all the regions have got to deal with. Are you know, what are the targets this season? Are you relatively confident you can compete for the top 8? How do you view it?
I don't view it really. I'm more interested in seeing where we are, as boring an answer it is for you. I'm not, you know, and it's not me giving you something to shoot me with. It's really around their talent will decide, but we do understand with young players and large changes in group that there's often a fluctuation in performance standard, certainly from an outcome point of view. It's part of being young, learning how to get yourself mentally prepared week in, week out in the grind. And, you know, what we do is tough. Everyone sees the 80-minute final, if you like, every week, but what goes on takes a massive amount of resilience and determination. And that's often, you know, the most difficult thing. So I'm confident if we can maintain performance standards, we'll be competitive. What competitive looks like against the, you know, the other teams in the division, that's a different question. But if we can be consistent and deliver that what our talent decides, we will certainly can be described as competitive for sure.
And just finally for me, we're speaking of Owen Watkin in a bit. Obviously he was a regular in the Wales squad and unfortunately didn't make the summer training camps. How's he reacted to that? And, you know, do you think he can he's got the potential to force his way back into the international scene over the season, next season or so?
Yeah, Owen obviously missed out. There was injury around that, and, you know, there's no good time to be injured, but even less so when, you know, international camps are coming around the corner, World Cup camps. So yeah, the first thing was to get him physically right, and we've done that. He's, you know, I really enjoy Owen. I think he brings a lot of added value, especially as a defensive leader for sure. We've got Kieran Williams as well. You know, there's a lot of young centres coming into that sort of Welsh 12-13 shirts. But I know Owen's determined to do so, and we'll support him in doing that and help him to be a good a player as he can be. And then other people are going to decide. But Owen's very determined, and we're very determined to help him for sure.
Brilliant. Thanks, Toby, and good luck in the weekend.
Thank you.
Hi, Toby. Simon here. Can I have a quick one, Toby? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I was just going to say it's always a kind of different kind of season after a World Cup. You know, players coming back at different times. So does that affect, in your view, like the kind of likely candidates to push for the title, or will we end up probably with the same kind of suspects pushing at the top, do you think?
Well, I know the lawmakers or the competition makers would say that's what the playoffs are for, you know, to give yourself that opportunity. I've certainly had that thrust upon me in my previous life in the Premiership, for sure. So, but I also know, for example, that in the English Premiership, often an outlier, if you, for want of a better phrase, occurs in this year, because people will sometimes get some momentum. I think of Harlequins and Bristol, for example, a bit of challenging for English Premiership titles. You know, they often stole a march early on in a World Cup campaign and made themselves difficult. Just shows you the power of backing up wins and confidence and that sort of stuff, you know. So look, I think in any sport, if you look at rugby, it's no different. People often with the deepest squads, the quality normally end up there or thereabouts. But there's always a chance, and that's sport is around, you know, everyone loves sport for its uncertainty at times. You've seen in the World Cup some great performances from people that were less expected. You look at Portugal, Uruguay, for example, Fiji, everyone was talking about. So that's what makes sport great, right? And if we can produce a bit of Portugal and a bit of Fiji, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, coming on to that, for you as the Ospreys, for you as a coach, what would success look like in the league season this year?
We've not deliberately not spoken about it as a group. You know, going 13 weeks straight from this weekend onwards will present enough problems, and rather than looking at outcome. So I'm reticent to nail the colours to the cross, because the other thing I always want to manage expectation for the players and just let them think about a week on, week off sort of scenario. And that's really important, because the moment you look too far ahead, you trip up and all that sort of stuff. And we've just got to get used to being in that, you know, washing machine of preparing well every week. But look, we need to be competitive. We want to, you know, if we prepare like with like, our performance against Welsh regions will always be a comparable, for example. You know, that's an important thing. We've always, every time we play in any competition in Europe, that provides a different focus. So Europe, our progress in Europe will be certainly something, although the away fixture in South Africa certainly brings a few different problems with it from a logistic point of view. So I think they're the sort of baseline sort of performance measures we'll probably look at, and then we'll see where that takes us.
Brilliant, Toby. Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck this season.
Anyone else? All good?
Toby. Yeah, no, it's William Davis here in Galway. Toby, look forward to you coming over on Saturday. I'm just wondering, has the situation in Welsh rugby stabilised a bit? Last season seemed to be a bit of crisis management every week for everybody. Is it a bit more stable now, and has the performance at the World Cup maybe helped that as well?
Regionally, no, I don't think it's affected it at all, if I'm honest. I think that we've just sort of got on cutting our cloth accordingly, really. You know, it sort of all happened at once. We got to a point and everyone's sort of gone off and done what they needed to do. I think what's interesting now with that whole Welsh rugby thing is what happens now. So everyone's talked about, you know, what happens post the event, and you know, a lot of the blood is on the carpet, for want of a better phrase, and everyone knows where we are. Now we're making the best, and there's been a big talk about collaboration, which is important, because we all want the same thing. We want a successful regions. We want successful Welsh team. We want more players, better resources, people coming to play. So look, we've all got to understand we all play a part in this. And the better aligned and respectful and sort of considerate we are around all those things, will make the game more stable for sure. And we need a stable base in order to move forward, you know.
Thank you for that. You've also just alluded to the fact that it's a plastic pitch or a whatever
Synthetic.
you seems to have a different name every week.
Pitch.
Synthetic. That's the magic word I was looking for. That's what I've been told I have to call it. Do you have to prepare slightly differently for that at all, or do you just have to go, right, that's what's in front of us?
No, I think the game is, you know, the S&C boys will give you the actual numbers. The game is a little bit faster, and the game time on those pitches, because of the conditions, often are a little bit longer, which is normal. The biggest management really is not around the pitch itself. It's in relation to what the pitch actually gives you. It's pre and post. So if you don't play on it, training on different surfaces creates a reaction in some players with you know, sort of joint compromised players, for example, and you have to manage their program a little bit. And also post that there is a different recovery element to playing on that sort of pitch. So the game itself is the game itself, as I said, a bit quicker, often bounce a little bit more bouncy and a bit more obscure at times, but that's fine. It's really about how you prepare for it and how you recover from it.
When do you head over, Toby? Are you coming in a bit early, or are you coming on the day?
No, we're coming tomorrow. We'll come tomorrow. So tomorrow afternoon, we'll fly in tomorrow afternoon. It being an afternoon kickoff, get down there and then have a nice overnight. Spend a bit of time with you, watch a little bit of rugby probably, and then get excited for the first game and roll into town and see where it goes.